The same stream every day. This village never leaves room for anything new.
We are fetching water, not going on an adventure.
Let us go to Oyimiri.
I am not going there.
You are still afraid of old women's stories?
When they got back to the village, they thought it had only been a few hours. But the villagers had been searching for them for 7 days. And by then, 2 of them were already gone. Nobody could explain what really happened at that river, but it all started with something they found. So stay with me till the very end, because this didn't end the way anyone expected. In a quiet village, 3 young girls were sent on a simple errand. Their names were Adaeze, Inkem, and Mirioma. They were close friends. They grew up in the same village, walked the same roads, and did many things together. On that day, each of them carried a clay pot on her head and left home like they always did. Their mothers had sent them to the usual stream. It was a safe place to fetch water. Everybody in the village used that stream. But as they walked, Adaeze began to complain.
The same stream every day. This village never leaves room for anything new.
We are fetching water, not going on an adventure.
Let us go to Oyimiri.
Oyimiri was the forbidden river. The whole village knew about it. Children were warned not to go there. Young girls were warned even more strongly. Many strange stories had been told about that river for years. Some said people who went there carelessly did not return the same way. Some said the river kept things. Some said it was not every hand that could touch what belonged near that water and remain in peace. Mirioma quickly shook her head.
I am not going there.
You are still afraid of old women's stories?
No, I am not going there. It is not old women's stories. Even my mother warned me about that river. Our mothers warn us about everything.
They warn us about roads, rivers, trees, and even shadows. Must we be afraid of every place they mention? Even if nothing is there, if someone sees us, we will be in trouble. You are right. We must be very careful. Nobody will see us. We will go there, look around, maybe even fetch water, then return. It is not as if we are going to spend the night there.
Mirioma was still not convinced. But Adaeze was bold and Inkem was curious. And many times in life, curiosity becomes stronger when fear is mixed with it. Adaeze kept talking until the idea began to sound harmless. Let us just go and come back, she said. At least we will see the river with our own eyes and stop living on stories. Mirioma looked at the 2 of them and made the mistake many people make when they know something feels wrong, but they do not want to be left out. She agreed. And that was how the 3 girls left the safe path and turned toward the forbidden river. The road to Oyimiri was different from the usual path to the village stream. It was narrower, quieter. The deeper they went, the thicker the bush became. The air felt different there. Not hot, not cold, just different. Even their voices became softer without them planning it. The sounds of village life faded behind them until all they could hear was the movement of leaves, distant birds, and their own footsteps on the earth. When they finally reached the river, they stopped. The place was beautiful. That was the first thing that confused them. It was not ugly, it was not rough. It was not the kind of place that looked dangerous at first sight. The river was calm and wide, with dark, still water and tall trees standing around it like silent watchers. The whole place felt untouched, like somewhere people had learned to avoid for a reason. For a few moments, the girls simply looked. Nothing happened. No strange sound, no sudden movement, no warning. Slowly, their fear began to fade. Adaeze was the first to laugh.
This is the place
everybody fears? Inkem looked around carefully. It does not look bad. Mirioma said nothing. Something still sat uncomfortably in her chest, but she could not point to it and she could not explain it. And when the other 2 began to move toward the water, she followed, because standing alone at the edge felt worse than going forward together. They dropped their clay pots. Then they moved closer to the water. Soon, they were splashing one another like children. They laughed, teased one another, and forgot themselves completely. The errand that brought them there no longer mattered. The warnings of the village no longer felt serious. For a short time, it felt like harmless fun. Then Nkem saw something. "Wait," she said. The other two turned. Near the river bank, half hidden close to the roots of a tree, was a leather bag. It looked heavy and old, as though it had not been there for very long. Miriam's heart sank immediately. "Leave it." But Adaeze had already made up her mind. She pulled it out. It was heavier than she expected. Nkem came closer. "Open it." Miriam shook her head. "No, we should leave it there." Adaeze ignored her and opened the bag. The three girls froze. Inside the bag were bundles of money. Not small money. Not the kind a child would save in secret. Real money. Plenty of it. More than any of them had ever seen in their entire lives. Amongst the money was a pair of male clothes folded carefully. For some moments, no one spoke. Then Adaeze whispered, "This can change our lives." Nkem was staring too hard to answer. Miriam was the first to recover her voice. "This is not good," she said. Adaeze turned to her. "What is not good about money? It is not ours." Nkem finally spoke. "Then whose is it?" No one answered. Miriam said they should take it to the elders. Adaeze refused immediately. "If we take this to the elders, they will seize everything and still punish us for coming here." Nkem looked from the bag to Adaeze, then to Miriam. "If we tell anybody, we will have to explain where we found it." Miriam still did not want to touch it, but Adaeze had already made up her mind. She said this was their chance. She said opportunities like this did not come twice. She said only foolish people threw away blessings because of fear. That was the moment their trouble truly began, and they had no idea, because what they carried away from that river was not just money. The journey back did not feel like the journey there. Before they found the money, they had been laughing. Now they were quiet. Each girl was lost in her own thoughts. Each one was already imagining what her share of the money could become. For Adaeze, it meant escape from poverty. For Nkem, it meant comfort, a better future. For Miriam, it meant fear. She no longer felt excitement, only the heavy feeling that something had gone wrong the moment they touched that bag. Adaeze spoke first. "We should divide it." Nkem nodded. "Yes, now." Miriam hesitated before speaking. "Can we not still return it?" The answer came without words, just the way Adaeze and Nkem looked at her. And in that moment, Miriam understood they had already gone too far. They stopped at a hidden part of the bush. They set down their clay pots and opened the bag again. This time, the money felt different, more real, more serious, more dangerous. The plan was simple. 3 girls, 3 equal shares. But the moment they began to count, Miriam stepped aside and everything changed. "Count properly," Nkem said. "I am counting properly," Adaeze replied. "You are rushing." Adaeze looked up at Nkem with fury in her eyes. "Do you think I am trying to cheat you?" Miriam finally said, "Let us count together to make peace reign." Then they started again, slower this time, careful, but something had already entered the moment: suspicion. Every bundle felt uneven. Every pile looked wrong. Every movement felt like it could hide something. When they finished, they arranged 2 shares. Miriam had made it clear she never wanted to be a part of it. 2 shares meant a lot of money, but it didn't seem satisfying. "Mine is smaller," Adaeze said. It is not, Nkem replied. They are the same, Miriama added. Adaeze shook her head. No, no. If I did not suggest we come here, none of us would have found this. That does not mean you deserve more, Nkem said. I was the one with courage. Nkem held her gaze. No, you are the one with greed. That word stayed in the air. Greed? Say that again, Adaeze said. You heard me, Nkem replied. Please, stop, Miriama intervened. The argument did not become a full fight, but the tension had already been raised like bread in an oven. They packed the money and continued walking. Now, each of them watched the others differently. They no longer looked like friends. They looked like people standing between one another and something they were not willing to lose. After a while, Nkem noticed something. What is that? She asked. Nothing, Adaeze answered. Open it. No. Miriama felt fear rise in her chest. Then suddenly, a bundle slipped out of her wrapper. Nkem lost it. You thief! You took more?
You took more?
Adaeze did not
You are
answer.
so greedy!
The fight came without warning. They pushed, they dragged each other, they shouted over one another. In the struggle, Adaeze grabbed a stick and swung it. Nkem cried out as it caught her arm. For a moment, everything paused, but it did not end. It only went deeper. Stop, please, stop, Miriama cried.
Let us leave the money. But no one listened. By then, greed had taken hold. Fairness no longer mattered. Trust was gone. And even fear was not enough to pull them away. That was how powerful it had become. It held all three of them in place. When they finally got the entrance of Oyumiri, the path that led to the village and the main village river, Adaeze spoke again. We cannot take this into the village. Why not? Nkem asked. If anyone sees this, we are finished. People will ask questions. Someone will report us. Let us hide it first. Not far from where they stood was an abandoned hunter's shed. Old, broken, forgotten. They took the money inside. The air was dry, still, heavy. Loose planks covered parts of the floor. They lifted them and hid the money underneath. Then they sat down. No one moved. No one trusted the others. And as darkness slowly gathered around them, so did the end. The three girls stayed inside the abandoned shed as evening turned into night. The place was quiet. The air inside felt heavy. Each of them was tired, hungry, and afraid, but none of them wanted to walk away from the money. After some time, Adaeze stood up and said she was taking her share and leaving. Immediately, Nkem stood up too and said Adaeze would not touch anything alone. Miriama begged both of them to stop. She said they should leave the money and go home. But Adaeze said no. She said this money was her chance to escape poverty. Nkem also made it clear that she was not going to leave empty-handed. At that point, the truth was clear. All three girls had changed. The money had broken their friendship.
Adaeze bent down and opened the floor again to bring out the hidden money. The moment the money appeared, Nkem rushed at her. Adaeze grabbed the bundles. Miriama tried to stop them. All three struggled at once. They pushed into one another inside the small hut. During the struggle, the old lantern fell and shattered. A small flame caught. At first, it looked like nothing. Then it began to spread. At the same moment, the bag slipped. It fell straight into the open hole in the floor. For a second, everything stopped. Then Adaeze moved first. She jumped in. Nkem followed immediately. "Leave it!" Miriama shouted, but they did not listen. Inside the hole, they scrambled in the dark. They pushed, searched, and grabbed at the scattered money. Above them, the flames spread. Fire caught the dry wood. Smoke began to rise. "Come out!" Miriama cried. But the deeper they reached, the harder it became to live. The heat grew. The air became thick. The roof above them began to weaken. Miriama stumbled back. She looked into the hole one last time, but the flames had already taken over. She turned and ran out. But the wood above cracked. Dust fell. Then part of the roof gave way. Just like that, both Adaze and Nkem were gone. Only Miriama was left alive. She ran all the way back to the village, crying and shaking. When she arrived, something was wrong. The air felt different. The people who saw her did not look relieved, they looked shocked. Women rushed toward her. Men gathered quickly. One of them grabbed her shoulders. "Where have you been?" Miriama struggled to answer. "We just went to fetch water." "Fetch water?" the man asked. "You have been missing for 7 days." When the men followed Miriama back to the burnt hut, what they found shook even the oldest among them. The bodies of Adaeze and Nkem were there, badly burnt, but they did not look like girls who had just fallen that same evening. The fire looked old. The bodies looked like they had been there for days. Everything looked off to Miriama. Their bodies were meant to be inside the hole beneath the ground, but their bodies lay cold just inside the hut. She was confused. How did they get out, she thought. This left her puzzled. Then she said to the men, "Look for the bag. It must be somewhere around." They searched the hut. They checked beneath the broken floor. Miriama pointed into the hole. There, the bag. The money must still be there. The men looked, confused. "What money?" one of them asked. "We cannot see any bag." Silence filled the air. Miriama looked down at her hands, insisting, "This is the bag we found at Oyimiri. This is the money that turned us against each other. This is the money that ended my friends." She fell to her knees crying, but the people around her looked confused. "What bag? We cannot see any bag." She stood up, lifting the bag. "This bag? What bag?" The people looked puzzled. In that moment, it became clear. The money had never been real. What they had seen, what they had fought for, what had destroyed them was never truly there. And she had lost her friend over something that did not exist. From that day on, Miriama never remained the same. She survived, but she carried that day in her heart for the rest of her life. She was the only one left to tell the story. And wherever she told the story, she always ended with the same warning. The river they went to, Oyimiri, meaning cold water, was not an ordinary river. It had been there long before the village, and the elders used to say it had a way of looking into a person's heart. Not everyone who stood by that water saw the same thing. Some saw what they feared, some saw what they had lost, and some saw what they desired the most. What appears near that river is not always something placed there. Sometimes it is something drawn out from within, something that feels real enough to touch, real enough to fight for, real enough to destroy. That was what happened to those girls. They did not just find money. They found what their hearts were already holding. And when greed took over, they could no longer tell the difference between what was real and what was not. So they held on to it, fought for it, and lost everything because of it. In the end, the river did not destroy them. It only revealed what was already in their hearts. And not everything that looks like an opportunity is meant to be kept. We must be discerning and always remember that only hard work and consistency brings profits. Now tell me in the comments, do you believe it was only greed that destroyed them? Or do you believe the river destroyed them? If you enjoyed this story, like this video, subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who needs to hear this.
And before you go, I just want to appreciate some of you from our last story. Shout out to Omotunde Kemisola watching from Nigeria, to Rose Concadio watching from Liberia, to Maria Denise watching from Uganda, to Elizabeth Badu watching from Ghana, to Haziel watching from Zimbabwe, to Linda Chipulu watching from Zambia, to Don Morris watching from Jamaica, to Brenda Bassi and Xavier Serra watching from France, to Carla Santiago watching from Florida, and to everyone not even mentioned here right now. I see you all, and I truly appreciate the love. I saw your comments. Some of you said the story was beautiful. Some of you said it was touching, and some even said this should be a full movie. I appreciate every single one of you for the likes, even, and to those asking for more stories. I hear you. More is coming. If you want to be featured in the next video, drop your thoughts in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. Thank you all once again, and I'll see you all in the next one.